Marvelous hello, friends and loved ones. So, back in January, I talked about the very first Shantae game in celebration of this year being her 20th anniversary. And I asked y'all to let me know in the comments if you wanted to see me talk about all the other games in the series this year as well. Well, most of y'all said yes, so today I'm here talking about the next Shantae game, Risky's Revenge. Whenever I think about the gap between the first Shantae and Risky's Revenge, it always seems really huge to me. Like one of the biggest gaps between game entries of any series. But when I double check the dates, it really isn't all that bad. Sure, I'm not going to argue that 8 years is short or anything, but it was the same length between Persona 4 and Persona 5. And it doesn't even come close to the massive gap between something like Pokémon Snap and New Pokémon Snap that was only closed last year. Shantae Risky's Revenge was originally released in 2010, exclusively for the DS iWare shop, which is like the video game equivalent of a movie being exclusive to Crackle. It was met with positive reception though, and even managed to get an iOS port about a year later. But I think the game didn't really pick up steam for audiences until 2014 when the Director's Cut was released on Steam just a few months before the third game, Pirate's Curse, launched for the 3DS. Why Risky's Revenge wasn't also put on the 3DS to try and capitalize on this, I have no idea. A few other ports were released here and there, like on the PS4 and Wii U, but just like with the first game, the version I'll be playing today is the physical Switch copy released via Limited Run Games last year. Presumably, shortly after the events of the first game, Shantae continues her job as the guardian half-genie of Scuttletown. And during Uncle Mimic's own personal Antiques Roadshow, he accidentally reveals an old oil lamp, whereupon the sexy pirate queen, Risky Boots, crashes through the ceiling and...
I will steal this magic lamp for no particular reason!
Shantae tries to stop her, but ends up getting knocked out cold. After all, this is Risky's Revenge. The lady herself even flat out says as much. Shantae gets fired from her guardian job by the mayor, and despite Mimic's objections, she vows to get the lamp back from Risky before she can unlock its power. It's basically the same premise as the first game, only instead of recovering 4 magical stones that could power a steam engine, Shantae needs to gather the 3 magical seals, that are guarded by 3 powerful barons who see themselves as collectors of rare and powerful artifacts. At first glance, Risky's Revenge definitely seems like a step up in quality. The sprite work on the characters, and especially the backgrounds, is positively gorgeous. Jake Kaufman returns as composer, and his work is still awesome. Characters now have hand-drawn portraits with different expressions during dialogue scenes, and some characters, like Roddy Tops, even have side boob. Who doesn't love side boob? One of my main complaints in the original game was how large and empty Sequin Land felt. They definitely shrunk things down for this new installment. There are way fewer locations, and they are a lot smaller, making it harder to get lost, and making it so you don't get sent back nearly as far if you fall into a bottomless pit. You're still sent back to whatever entrance you came in from, but these smaller areas make it more of a minor inconvenience than a genuine frustration. Plus, Risky's Revenge got rid of that horrible live system. Yeah, it means now that if you die, it's a straight up game over, but I think that's fair now that things like bottomless pits and spikes are no longer one-hit kills. Not to mention save points are far more plentiful, so just be smart about it and you should be fine. And yes, we're still rewarded for our failures by getting to stare at Risky Boots, so is it even really a problem? While I do personally like the more condensed locations, there's still the other issue from the original game in that there's still not a whole lot to do. In fact, there's noticeably quite a bit less you can do in Risky's Revenge. While the original game had multiple towns, each with unique locations like the Gecko Gambling or the Roddy Top races, Risky's Revenge only has Scuttletown. And while it may seem a bit bigger with the different planes you can jump back and forth between, it's surprisingly sparse. There's no more dance hall, and they got rid of the bathhouse where you could heal yourself. But hey, there's always the import house! This place offered you free money if you had save data from some other WayForward games on your DSi. But on the Switch, you can... piss off, I guess. The shop got a bit of an overhaul from the first Shantae. What were once disposable items are now magic spells that you'll have full access to. The major ones are still there, like the Storm Puff and the ever-useful Pike Balls. You can even buy a few upgrades for Shantae herself, such as making her hair stronger and faster, or having her magic recharge automatically. Sure, a few items are mysteriously absent, like the mint that makes another Shantae, and the screw this I'm busy invisibility cream, but overall, I like this. It's a good system. Being able to turn your magic on or off with the push of a single button felt great, and really helped me out of a few jams. Speaking of jam, that's what you're gonna need if you want to upgrade much of anything. Magic jams are hidden throughout Sequin Land and in some of the game's labyrinths. These are arguably the main collectible alongside heart containers to increase your max health. There's no more day and night cycle, so there are no fireflies like the original game had, and while there are still special totems to upgrade Shantae's transformation forms, these aren't just helpful items that allow you to attack while transformed, but provide specific abilities that you'll actually need to finish the game. So I don't really see them as collectibles since they're mandatory. Shantae's transformations are also noticeably dialed back, and instead of getting them from freeing a captured Half-Genie, you now get them from a giant blue naked Shantae that guards these magic fountains. You still have the monkey and the elephant, which basically act the same as they did before. The monkey allows Shantae to climb walls, and when upgraded you can do some zoomy zooms to get across long, wide areas. And the elephant can still destroy specific obstacles and gain access to a ground pound to break things beneath you. They got rid of the spider, harpy, and tinkerbat transformations, but did introduce a new mermaid form near the end of the game that's absolutely useless on land, but allows Shantae to dive underwater, and the upgrade there basically turns it into a gun. In fact, there's even a pretty fun horizontal shooter segment with this thing that I enjoyed, even if I think it went on for a little bit too long. Labyrinths are back, but Risky's Revenge only has 2 of them, which is a noticeable downgrade from the first Shantae's 4. You could argue there are actually 3 with the Ammo Baron's Battle Tower, but I don't count that. It's a linear sequence of battle rooms. There are no puzzles, unless you consider a time limit to be a puzzle, and there's not even a boss fight. Which is a darn shame, because the boss battles are probably where Risky's Revenge really upped their game. There aren't many of them, but I loved the bosses in this game. The characters in general were all pretty solid. Sky, Bolo, and Roddy Tops are all still here, though I found them to be slightly less prominent than in the first game. Mimic really got a chance to shine, and felt more like a proper uncle for Shantae, rather than the crazy coot who what done built the MacGuffin. Shantae and Risky Boots are as fantastic together as ever, and we even got a few fun newcomers, like Roddy Top's brothers Abner Cadaver and Poe. I also really liked all 3 Barons. Squid Baron is just a treat. Ammo Baron is the explosive new owner of Scuttletown after the mayor has us hand over the deed to him.
Kaboom!
And Hypno Baron kinda brought up a good point that Shantae really doesn't need his seal because we've already stopped Risky Boots from getting the first 2 and she needs all 3. But the best character in the entire game is Barracuda Joe. Just look at that mustache. No wonder Shantae considers maybe possibly thinking about contemplating giving him all the smooches. Freaking love this guy. But once you've got all the seals and any other items you need to infiltrate Risky's lair, you have one final showdown with the Pirate Queen herself. The day is saved, the mayor gives Shantae her job back, even though I'm not sure he still has the power to do that since he sold the town to Ammo Baron, and more or less the status quo is restored. Well, except for one pretty big thing, but I'll save talking about that for when I go over the next game, Shantae and the Pirate's Curse. After beating the game, players will unlock Magical Mode, which not only puts Shantae in a sexy new outfit, but provides players with an added challenge. This form basically doubles your magic, but halves your defense, meaning you have to play things a lot more carefully. I did not beat the game on Magical Mode, because I kinda suck. Once again, I feel like the question at the end of the day is, do I recommend Risky's Revenge? In many ways, the game feels stripped down from the first title. It has a smaller world, fewer collectibles, and basically half the amount of actual dungeons. But on the other hand, I'd argue those dungeons were a lot better, the boss fights were great, and the overall quality of life improvements like the entire magic mechanic, improved dancing, and ditching the live system makes me a lot more comfortable about recommending this one. I do still think it's one of the weaker titles in the entire series, being much closer to the first one on the bottom of my rankings, but I also think it's important how likely it is that this game may not have ever even existed. So I feel like I should cut them a little slack. They were getting back into the swing of things. Besides, replaying it for this video, I can definitely say I had a lot more fun than I did going back to the first game. Risky's Revenge is also a much shorter experience. When you beat the game, they tell you how long your playthrough was and how many of these special items you managed to collect. Much like the Metroid series, players are rewarded with different images for beating the game quickly and or collecting everything. The one I got is arguably the worst ending, but I've got Shantae squeezing her boobs together and winking at me, so as far as I'm concerned, that makes it the best. What do you mean there's one where she's in a bikini? Risky's Revenge is a perfectly fine game in the series, but I'm also happy to say that things definitely go up from here. So be prepared for me to say a lot more nice things about this series I claim to love, as next time, I'll be looking at Shantae and the Pirate's Curse. Before I go today, I want to give extra special thanks to all the people who commented on the last video convincing me to talk about all the Shantae games this year, because I really like Shantae, even if these past two videos haven't really seemed like it. But I'm very excited to talk about the next game. And for those of you that don't want to see me talk about all the Shantae games, too bad. Y'all had your chance to speak up. See you next time.